do financial assessment and coaching, right? For
Well,
people
yeah,
like,
that's what I do. My job. So my job is it's a weird title that doesn't mean much. It's startup catalyst, but we're basically
mhm,
business consultants for startup companies that are
gotcha.
looking to get investments or to scale.
Okay, so part of your process is analyzing like their financial plans and all that stuff, right?
It's at least half of the process,
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah, which he started the very beginnings with me on an individual level, and I've done a terrible job of actually following through with
Well,
everything.
I wasn't gonna, bust you out like that yet, but it was
Hey,
coming.
I called myself out on the last episode. I'll call myself out again. All right, just let me get through the fucking holidays. I'm like white knuckling it through the fucking holidays right now. I'm just like, please, just let me get through this. Let the new year come. I'm done with this shit. But no, it's funny too. As a recruiter, one of the for those who don't know, I've got my professional career is in recruiting. I've been in recruiting for over 10 years. One of the funniest things for me is job titles. What did you say it was again, Robert? Something catalyst?
A startup catalyst, but like
Startup catalyst.
my legal one is even more vague. It's
Uh-huh.
um, research faculty.
Research faculty. All right. So
Yeah,
either one of those. So I've
even
always
worse.
loved one of the funniest things I have in recruiting, and I give like resume advice to people out there who are like looking for their next career. Do yourself a favor out there. I'm not talking to anybody on this call, but yeah, if the shoe fits, if your company comes up with some off the fucking wall job title, just translate it. Don't put that shit on your resume when you're looking for a new job. Like if they call you lead fucking people cheerleader, but you're an HR generalist, just put HR generalist. Do not put lead people cheerleader as your fucking job. Just translate it. It's okay. I don't care what your previous company called you. Just put what the accepted norm of what you actually did is for other companies. Honestly, I love the companies trying to come up with more creative titles. I'm not against it. I think it's kind of cool, but I can't tell you the number of times that I've seen people put a job title where it's like, what does that even mean?
What do you think? What do you think about putting that job title and then in parentheses putting like HR generalist?
Also something that would work, but you want to at least have in there, what the normal nomenclature would be.
Mhm.
Not only because for the obvious, it'll get you past like the AI keyword kind of crap. Because if I go into a resume database for a candidate and I type in job title of HR generalist, it's not gonna pull your resume up if you just have lead people
Right.
cheerleader who loves fries or something. And so I've seen some crazy ones. And so yeah, the parentheses would work at least to get you past the the keyword and robot search. But basically what I always advise people is the level that matters is when a human being, me as a recruiter, is viewing your resume, and I'm viewing, especially for a highly sought after position, I'm viewing 100 resumes, in an hour or two. And so you want to I'm really not going into a lot of detail. Like I'm sharing some of the things that I share in my resume consultations that I do, but like I'm not reading your 15 freaking bullets. I don't care about your fancy made up job title that's doesn't apply anywhere else. I'm looking at where you worked, what your job title was, and how long you were there. And if you don't catch my attention with those couple of things within 15 to 30 seconds at most, I'm moving on to the next resume. And
15,
so
30
yeah.
seconds.
Well, it depends on the role. I've been recruiting for, like I said, over 10 years for a lot of roles. And yeah, obviously that changes if I'm hiring for a very niche position where I get 3 applications over the course of a month. I'm probably going to look at everybody's resume pretty closely. But especially if you're going for a competitive job that I got 100 applications for, yeah, I've only got 8 hours in the freaking day and I need to get somebody hired. I'm looking for, for example, project manager. As soon as I see a resume that says project manager, between 5 to 10 years, I'm already calling you. I'm not even reading the rest. I'm like, okay, I'm calling this person because I can't tell you how many resumes don't even have that in the title when that's what they're applying for, and that's what they have experience in, but they didn't have the. Go for it.
What's in a name? What is your thought when you see a batshit crazy name?
You mean like a person's name?
Yes, on a resume.
Ooh. That all right. That's a question that I would answer differently at work, or at least more carefully than I will here, because this is my show and I will say whatever the fuck I want. Biases, conscious, known, or subconscious and unknown, they're real. And automatically, I will be honest, if I see a name that's like really off the wall or odd or something like that, there's an initial like like a raising of an eyebrow. Sure. I will say, oh, my daughter's running across the house for some reason. Hi. I will say I've worked on that specific unconscious bias enough over my 10 plus years in recruiting to know some of my best hires, the best people I've hired, have had off the wall names, or had other things that I maybe previously would have had some unconscious biases for. But a less experienced recruiter, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that that's not something that can have an impact on their hiring decision.
Now,
if you're looking at a resume that says Robert Grant and it has ABC experience and everything you're looking for, and you have the exact same kind of resume, exact same experience, but that kind of off the wall name, for a less experienced recruiter who doesn't know that you should call both, it might influence which one they call first. And it's just a reality of human conscious bias or human unconscious bias even.
What were you about to say,
Go
Jay?
ahead.
Yeah, not to make this like a resume talk or anything, but like out of curiosity,
this show is whatever the fuck we want to do. So.
Out of curiosity, like when you see a resume, when someone adds their pronouns, what does that like do? Because I heard some people say like they immediately throw that shit away because they don't want to risk them being troublemakers.
So, so now we're getting into a conversation of what's right versus what's reality when it comes to job seeking. And there was a really interesting debate on LinkedIn that I ended up falling on the opposite side of most people on LinkedIn, but most people on LinkedIn haven't hired for a living for the past. Well, yes, that's one. And for two, like most people aren't, haven't been in the recruiting industry as I have for the past 10 years. It was about the open to work banner. You guys know that thing? Like the green, if you're familiar with LinkedIn, like you can put the open to work banner on your profile picture, letting people know that you're open to work. And so it's just like a feature. Like on Facebook, they used to have like, I support Ukraine or whatever the fuck it was. And you can have like a special little thing on your profile picture. And so there was this big debate about, because this Google article came out, or it wasn't a Google article, but it was an article that was interviewing an ex-Google recruiter. And he was basically saying, like, don't use the open to work banner. Like it makes you look desperate. It came off very negative. And so there was this big debate on LinkedIn with a bunch of people like going on these long, rants about how they're not desperate, the layoffs this and the economy that, and it's not fair. They're not desperate. They're just excited to work and blah, blah, blah. And I ended up keeping my mouth shut just because I realized if I spoke up too loudly, I was just going way against the crowd. But what I really ended up finding was, if you listened to what the ex-Google recruiter was really saying, he was saying it was a cost versus benefit argument. Basically, the cost of putting the open to work banner is much more likely to happen than any benefit. Like, I'm not going to hire somebody because they have that green banner on their profile, but I could see how some recruiters would feel like that. And does that make it right that they would feel like it's desperate, or, you know, like this isn't a desirable candidate? No, it doesn't make it right, but I could see how that could be an unconscious bias. And so that's kind of the same way I feel about the, you know, the pronouns thing or anything else on your resume. Like, if you can't demonstrate an actual value in putting it, then why the fuck even do it? Like,
Yeah,
it's
that's
at
where I
that.
was.
Yeah,
That's
go
what I
ahead.
was thinking. Because my I look at it a lot like I look at dating. Like, I think there's some recruiters for whom, I mean, the same decision can have a different impact across 5 different people who are all in the same position of recruiter, right? So it's like this guy might have come from a school of thought where it's like this is an automatic red flag, and this guy might come from a school of thought where he's like this is a trend that we're seeing in great, energetic, enthusiastic new employees. Um, and I can't anticipate those preferences for people who I haven't met yet. So if I'm gonna put like for me, I would put if I mean I haven't been job hunting for a long time, but if I was and I were to choose to put he him on a resume, my intention behind it would be I have a name that a lot of people have not heard before. I'm clarifying that when I was a kid, I used to have people call me
I would
about
say, and you would have a legitimate reason for doing so
can I
with
speak
that
can
in
I
that
speak
case.
to
Yeah.
Miss Douglas? And I'm just like, no, so like literally that would be my motivation behind that. Someone might see that and be like, oh, that's a political statement by him doing that. Is he going to be a pro? But it's just like, I probably don't want to work with those people anyway. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like I gotta judge if I do that, why am I doing it? And if I feel like I have a reason for doing it, I gotta stand on that and just like I'm looking for a work environment that's gonna take me. So I need to make the most authentic choice to me, and then hopefully end up in an environment that wants me. And
Yeah.
a lot of recruitment, like motivational speaking that I've heard, I feel like encourages a lot of potential employees to mold themselves to be what spaces want them to be rather than seek
Mm.
out spaces that they fit into as they are. Because you'll definitely end up in an unhappy space trying to just be like, oh, do I need to stand? How do you want me to stand? Do I need to? Do you have to stop using these words? What words do you not like people to use? Like that kind of thing. You can get so wrapped up in that they're just getting like
And,
this empty vessel.
and I can 100% appreciate that, especially as somebody who has, you know, shared openly on my channel, on my YouTube channel, about my career issues with companies that I've worked for, and, you know, what I fell into recently and everything. Like, being a culture fit and feeling like you don't have to pretend to be something that you're not to work for a company, if you're going to work for a company and not be an amazing entrepreneur like our buddy Rob over here. If you're going to work in corporate America, it is very important that you find where you fit. But I wouldn't really call it a rebuttal. Um my kind
Caution.
of advice from, you know, from a recruiter's perspective is, I'm talking about you getting an interview. And the fact is that um I want, especially if they're a client or somebody that I'm seeing, you know, for resume advice and career search and job tips, my job is to give you the best information I can for you to get an interview with a hiring manager. And Devlon, to your point, you may have it may be a company that's the perfect fit for you, but you may be dealing with a single recruiter that has some biases, whether conscious or unconscious. And my job when I'm advising somebody like that is to get you to a fucking interview with somebody who matters, not the recruiter. And I'll say this, as a recruiter, I'm not the one who matters. I am the one who decides that first step and whether or not the hiring manager sees your resume, but I'm not the actual decision maker. I have never hired anybody ever. In 10 years of recruiting, I have never been responsible for hiring somebody. I've been responsible for presenting the candidates that the hiring manager gets to hire. And so I would say that, again, my advice typically professionally would be, you know, avoid anything that could prevent you from getting your resume in front of the person who matters. And whether or not I'm a jackass, the company may end up being a great opportunity. And I don't want the people that I advise to miss out on that opportunity
Yeah.
because they included some shit that was just, it didn't help. It didn't have a benefit,
Right.
and,
And,
and it may have a
that's what I'm
cost.
saying. Is
Yeah.
like if you were my recruiter, I would listen to all the advice and then just take it in and do the cost benefit analysis thing and still go with the decision that like I might land on a decision that is in opposition to what you suggested, but I'm going to do
Mhm.
that after hearing you out and thinking about, well, how do I view that suggestion? You know what I mean? Like I'm not just
Yeah.
going to be
And
like,
if you,
I'm not listening to anybody. I do what I want. It's just, at the end, I'm going to make the decision that allows me to walk away from the situation feeling like I was myself.
yeah, which I think is fair. I am 100% a proponent of standing on morals and values, whatever they are, whether or not I agree or disagree with them. But like I said, at the end of the day, Joe, to answer your question before I finally introduce you, because we've had some interesting conversations so far and I've loved it. If you guys can't tell, I love talking about this topic. It's not the point of the show. I should make a whole nother channel for recruiting shit. I will say this before I jump to you, Joe. No one has ever not been hired because they didn't put pronouns on their resume. I guarantee you there are large number of people who haven't even been interviewed because they did. And so when I talk about that cost benefit, like again, there's nobody who's ever not gotten the interview because they didn't put the pronouns. There are plenty of people, just from my knowledge of recruiting, who haven't gotten the interview because they did. So again, take that for what you will.